The Hangar Z podcast welcomes pilot Tim Brennan of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office.
You know, something kind of almost out of the movies from what they described, where they see the wall of water coming and it just sweeps them off the road and down into the wash. It was a minivan, actually had 3 elderly people in it, and it got swept down the river and then butted up against a tree in the middle of the wash.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor magazine. In this 3-episode series, Jack Schonely and John Gray sit down with Tim Brennan, a pilot with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, to trace an extraordinary aviation journey shaped by service, leadership, and life-saving missions. Tim shares what it was like growing up in a small town in North Idaho, the first flight that changed his life, and the path that led him to become an Army aviator, including a deployment to Afghanistan. He also reflects on his time at Quantum Helicopters, progressing from instructor to chief flight instructor, before moving into his current role with Maricopa County. In episode 3, the conversation culminates in a gripping account of an incredible swift water rescue, offering a first-hand look at the skill, teamwork, and split-second decisions required to save lives from the air. It is a story you will not want to miss. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Hangar Z, and please share with your friends and coworkers. We appreciate all of your support. Thank you to our sponsors, Shotover Systems, Metro Aviation, and Dallas Avionics.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor magazine. I'm your host, Jack Schonely. With me today is the creator of the Hangar Z podcast, John Gray. John, how are you today?
Good afternoon, sir. Very good. It is the commander's birthday today, so it's an extra special day. Happy birthday, Commander.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Tim.
I
appreciate that.
A little party favor to go with that.
Oh.
That's my audience in the background applauding you for your birthday.
All the Grays.
Including Lucy, the dogs back there singing. So happy birthday. It's an honor to be here with you on your special day.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that we got to do this today because we got a great guest too. That was a nice birthday present. So, because our guest today is a pilot with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office in Arizona. Pilot Tim Brennan. Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, Tim.
Oh, thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
We're excited about this. We've heard a lot of great things about you, Tim, and if half of them are true, this will be wonderful.
That should be good.
Good. Well, thanks for joining us and taking the time. This is Maricopa's a well-established unit, does great things, and now we've got a pilot to tell us about not only himself but about that program and all the things that they do. So, without any further delay or any more birthday stuff,
Here, one more.
Oh, yeah, that's the horn telling, okay, birthday's over. I'm trying to forget some of these birthdays, but this will be memorable. So,
it's really cool, Jack. When you think through this year, we've interviewed a lot of folks from Arizona in that general region. The number of outstanding aviation programs in Arizona is really impressive.
It is,
from Arizona DPS to Phoenix PD, your organization. You talked about Quantum and the unique tie-in that we have there, with this conversation and in previous conversation. Just really cool. What a dream kind of area to fly in. So I'm excited to hear about your experience and what it's like to operate out there.
Yeah, like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on. like I've told you when we were talking beforehand, I've been a fan of your show for a while. And even before I joined the sheriff's office, I was listening to your podcast because you had some guests on there from similar operators and just learning about their operation and trying to kind of get ahead of the game as far as expectations, what the units are looking for in a pilot and a crew member. And and just trying to set myself up for success. So it's been kind of a full circle moment for me being able to come on here, and I was pleasantly surprised to get invited on. And this is kind of a fanboy moment for me. So I appreciate you.
Cool.
I'd always listen to it and think, what would I say? It's some of these questions, and here I am. So it's very surreal.
Find out. You get to find out, Tim, because we're going to do the same thing to you. But yeah, I agree, John. I mean, Arizona is one of those places. And one of the reasons is the weather. There's no doubt about it. That's an influence on the fact that there are so many air assets working in Arizona, both in the training world and the real life public safety world, law enforcement. You get more good flying days than almost anywhere in the country. I mean, really.
I think I can count on one hand how many weather days you actually have. And when it is weather days, it is pretty bad weather.
Yeah.
We had a good stretch this fall, especially with some late monsoons and winter weather coming in. So, which led to like quite a few water rescues and stormy weather flying. But true, like, hey, we're not taking off from the airport kind of days. Yeah. It's very rare. So I really appreciate that being here, especially my, Army days being in upstate New York, where every third day was a weather day, and it was hard weather. It was, so this is awesome. It's a great place to fly as long as you don't mind being a little warm in the summertime. So
yeah.
But I know we'll get into the Fort Drum stuff later, but growing up, my family had I'll call it a cabin in upstate New York, a place called Lake Adonia. It's about 2 hours northeast of Lake or Fort Drum. So as a kid, I got to go up there, and I remember the first time I went there, I'm thinking New York. I think New York City. I'm like, what's this cabin in New York going to be like? But get up there, and it's the most beautiful, lush forest. It was really cool. That part of New York's beautiful. So cool you got to be up there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a nice area. It just is cold, and I growing up in Idaho. I had enough of the cold. So after we left New York, I was happy to be here. But everybody, you think New York, you always think that little tiny section of the city, and maybe Albany, but the overwhelming majority of the state is forest and state land. So it's a lot of rolling forested hills and lakes everywhere, and it is a nice area to be in for sure up there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. My family went up there for vacations a lot. Lake George area, Ticonderoga, Fort Ticonderoga. Went there many times as a kid growing up. Upstate New York is incredible. Yeah. Incredible. Did some bike riding up there in high school, Whiteface Mountain, cool. Lake Placid, Rome, that whole loop. Man, it's a great area. But in the winter, baby. No. That's the real deal, man.
Hard pass on the winter time.
Yeah, that's the real deal. Well, you're in Arizona now, Tim. So
I'm good.
You could forget all about that.
No need for a snowblower for you.
No.
Nope. I don't even know how to use one now, I'm sure. So
that's great. Well, let's start with this, because this is pretty cool, and it jumped out at me in the prep for this. As a 10-year-old, you were already thinking about aviation, but you were really thinking military jets. I mean, you were looking at jets. I want to be a jet pilot. But at 13, and after joining the Civil Air Patrol cadet program, something happened. Something changed you. Tell us about that specific event that changed you from military jets to the route you took.
Yeah, and what really piqued my interest in flying was, believe it or not, was I loved Star Wars as a kid. So seeing all the spaceship battles and being a starfighter pilot wasn't a real career according to the teachers. So I obviously looked at jet fighters and, loving Top Gun movies and military movies growing up. And so I was really set on going the jet pilot route. And, I'm sure we'll talk about looking at how my pathway, but as a 7th grader, I joined the Civil Air Patrol just because I was so interested in the military, and it was a great way. Civil Air Patrol is the Air Force Auxiliary. So they actually formed in World War II as a home defense force in a way, and they primarily flew the coast looking for submarines and old Cessnas. So that mission kind of transformed into search and rescue. So if there's ever a down aircraft or missing persons even, Civil Air Patrol, the modern CAP, is equipped to go out with the aircraft and fly and search for those ELT beacons. They have special antenna on the aircraft and getting involved with that mission. And they had a cadet program, and then they have a senior personnel program. So adults can join it as members, and also young kids like myself, school age. And up in Idaho, where I grew up in the north side there's a Air Force base called Fairchild Air Force Base north of Spokane, Washington, just across the border. And our cadet unit made contact. They had a search and rescue platform out there, and they flew Hueys. So they invited us out and offered us ride-alongs. And so we get there, we're going to the base, and I'm getting to see the real military pilot lifestyle for the first time. And I thought, since we walk in the door, and it's Air Force, Air Army, we didn't have this, but they had like a unit bar, they had a unit ready room, and I was like, this is cool. Everybody's walking around in flight suits. There's the flight line, there's the aircraft, and I knew I'd already wanted to join the military and fly, and that really affirmed it for me. I'm like, I have to do this. And then the big change came when we got to go out and do a flight with them, because what they do there, Fort Fairchild is where the Air Force does its SEER school, its survival school for pilots. So they have a search and rescue team there to go out and participate in the missions and also provide medevac support and coverage. So they were one of the last 2 Huey units left at the time in the Air Force before they switched everything out. And so we get in the aircraft, they give us their safety brief, and I got to sit in the door gunner side on the right side of the helicopter, and then hearing them start the engine, and everybody knows that classic Huey turbine wind up and the blast of smoke coming out the back. And I was on cloud 9. I was so excited. I was gripping the edge of my seat, and I was like, this is awesome. And then we pick up, and I was like, oh, that's it. I want to fly helicopters, because just nothing like flying a helicopter. And Terry talked about this a lot, and he and I talked a lot because he's got an interesting perspective going from fighter jets to helicopters. Yeah. But I'm like, man, I love the feeling of being able to just pick up, fly around, come to a hover, land, the maneuverability, the low level flying you get to do. I mean, you get to see the world from a perspective nobody else does unless you fly in a helicopter. And I was hooked. I knew from that moment on, I'm like, I will do everything I can to become a helicopter pilot. The only question is which branch and how. So that's what I ended up working on the rest of my schooling career in high school. So
that is, and you can tell that's a long time ago now. And it's vivid in your head now. I mean, you can tell just from your description about the sounds, the feelings, I'm sure the smells, everything hit you. And let's face it, you got into the most iconic helicopter in this country's history. Yeah. And it impacts everybody. I mean, John and I just went up in a Huey with K9 Torque down with Huey Vets last year. And
that was a cool
what
flight.
An amazing day. I mean, here's 2 helicopter pilots with thousands of hours. And we went in there and we got done, and John and I were like little kids, man. Yeah. It was just like you gripping the
seat. I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
It was. I think we went awesome. I think we did the same thing. So I understand that, and that's what really was cool when I learned that about you. I thought that doesn't surprise me, And what's really cool is that you followed through with it.
Yeah.
You just said, okay, I want to do this, and here you are. I mean, you're really living it and doing it. So. Well done, Tim. That's great.
Thank you.
It's interesting to me that you were part of the Civil Air Patrol. There's so many folks that we've had in the podcast that had their start and beginning there, including Jeff Rakovich.
Yep.
Many folks benefited from that program in so many ways, from leadership development to the motivation to pursue helicopters like you just brought up. Talk about from your perspective some of the benefits you got as a young man outside of the exposure to flying. The discipline, the structure, the leadership. What was impactful for you being a part of that program?
Thanks to our sponsor, Dallas Avionics, who provides innovative products to law enforcement, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, military, air medical, search and rescue, and special missions operations. Dallas Avionics distributes OEM equipment, including communications equipment, digital audio systems, PA systems, flight tracking, and other mission-critical devices. Visit DallasAvionics.com for more details.
I think one of the big things was you were around like-minded people, or young adults. In my case, I was only in it for about a year and a half till sports took over, and then I just really didn't have any time to dedicate to it. But you're with a group of people that have kind of similar values, similar interests, And then you're learning getting a taste of the military life. And most everybody that I remember being a cadet with had an interest already at that young age. And we had everybody from about my age, at the time I was 13, to high school age, 17, 18, till they had to go to the senior cadet or senior member program when they kind of age out. But you had a lot of people from different walks of life, and it was learning the basics of the military stuff, the history, the exposure to what the military does in the Air Force. It was obviously tailored to the Air Force lifestyle, but it was great. And then you did a lot of team building stuff too. So you learn how to be a, enlisted, so to speak, new airman, E1. And then as you kind of get more seniority, you can take tests, move up in rank, and you get more responsibility. So it was a microcosm too on basic leadership stuff, and you're not doing anything super serious with everybody, but you are getting a taste of building those character traits and fundamental skills of how do you deal with people, especially difficult people, or how do you motivate, provide purpose, direction, even in that little controlled environment. But it planted a lot of roots and built a foundation for giving you a taste of what's to come if you continue on this path and join the military. And from what I remember, a lot of them did end up going in the military, like myself. But it was a great start, and there's, for kids that age, junior high, high school, middle school age, there's really, that I know of, not a ton of other programs other than like a high school junior RTC or something like that. But this one, you actually would go out on searches. So we only had one when I was in a down airplane up in North Idaho, and I remember going out to the field, getting briefed. Okay, here's where we think they went. The airplane's flying overhead, and you're like, wow, this is real. I actually get to do something meaningful and potentially impactful and learn how to do it. So it was a great start, I'd say, to my military career, and kind of put me on that pathway and reaffirmed that it is what I wanted to get into. I got a taste, I liked it, so I'm going to keep on pursuing it from there.
That's really outstanding. I mean, that nothing that you just said surprised me at all. I'm sure that as you went on, and I don't want to jump too far ahead here, but as you went on through your time when you joined the military, I bet you thought back to that program a lot and said, "Oh, I've seen this before. Oh, I know what's coming now. Oh, this doesn't faze me." You understood that the structure you're talking about, the discipline, and it wasn't this shock to the system that everyone I know that's gone in the military has said that, it shocks people, that boot camp particularly. And for people that did the Civil Air Patrol cadet program or junior ROTC, it doesn't shock them. It's impactful, and it's like, whoa, I mean, this is the real deal. But it doesn't shock them. They're like, yeah, this is what I signed up for, and that benefits you. I'm sure that you thought back on it, especially in boot camp.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and one of the events we did as a cadet was, I think it was like the summer after my 8th grade year. You go to what they call summer encampment, which is like mini week-long boot, Air Force style summer camp. And, that was the first time I'd spent a long period away from home. And I remember the first few days, you're like, why do I feel crappy? What's going on with me? And everybody else feels it too. But after a day or two, you realize, oh, it's because I'm homesick. I'm out on my own for the first time. Your first exposure to even that basic stuff. So then when it comes time to do that later in my life, you're like, oh, I can get through it. It might be a rough start, but you like you said, it's a taste of what's to come. It's an introductory level experience that sets you up for that. So it's not such a shock to the system when you're, showing up and getting yelled at and, get in line and all that. And you're like, okay, I just got to tough it out here and make it through these short period, take it a day at a time, and you'll be good to go.
More than one of the Civil Air Patrol folks that I've spoken with talk about the promotional process, which you mentioned within Civil Air Patrol, and how you go through the boards there and how that set them up for success later in the military, understanding what those promotional boards are going to be like. And it's, again, like what Jack said, you're not like, holy cow, I have no idea what to expect. Did that help you as you went into the Army? I know it's different, but did those promotional experiences help?
Yeah, I'd say so. It really helped you with, okay, you've established a goal, and then there's steps to reach that goal. So, and with a lot of stuff, you figure out, especially when I got on the training side, I realized you got to kind of start at the end and and do some backwards planning to how do I get there now. So here's the end state, here's the end goal. I want to promote to cadet sergeant or cadet lieutenant, whatever. These are the steps, the tests required. These are the physical standards I got to meet. And here's the interviews and board questions you might get. And you kind of have an outline of, okay, if I need to achieve a goal, what's my steps to get there? So it definitely, helped. You don't realize it at the time, but like Jack mentioned, you think back to random memories, like, oh yeah, I have an idea of where to start this process if I want to end up here and where to go. So.
Do you recall how you found out about that program? Was it a friend, relative, something at school? What sparked you to even get involved?
I think I saw him at an air show. So that same Air Force base across the state, Fairchild had an air show, and we went one summer. And I remember seeing all these cadets my age with uniforms on and handing out brochures, and then they happened to be from the squadron that was in Spokane, and then they had a sister squadron from Idaho where I was, so down at the Pappy Boyington Field there in Hayden, Idaho. Then they had once a week they met, and they had open nights. You could just show up and check it out. So I went one night. My mom drove me down there, and I checked it out, and I was like, I want to sign up. I want to try this out and see what it's like. So that's how cool. I think I remember right. That's how I ended up seeing him. I was like, the guy's my age. He's wearing a BDUs. I don't know what's going on. What are you doing here? So
yeah. Air shows again, John.
Yeah.
Air shows. Everybody. It's amazing. When organizations and the military, they spend a lot of money doing these air shows. They really do. Mm-hmm. I mean, just flying an F-16 around for a demo costs a lot of money. It pays them back. And we have found that just on the podcast, how many people have said, well, my first time that I thought about this was at an air show. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive that how often that happens.
We're always talking about recruitment methods and how do we get, additional officers to the front door. Maybe we should take a page out of the military's book, some demonstrations. Obviously we can't do an air show, but demonstrations are impactful. And that's what an air show is. It's a demonstration of ability,
That's it.
So very cool.
Yeah, that's great. That was great. Well, that's a good way to start. So let's stay in that time frame. You grew up in northern Idaho in a small town. Talk about that and how, not only about the area you grew up and growing up, but talk about how that influenced your decisions, including joining the Air Patrol, Civil Air Patrol, and then the military.
Yeah. So I grew up north of Coeur d'Alene. There's a little town called Athol, Idaho. So it's got a funny name, but my parents, a lot of credit goes to them too, John and Annette, for how they raised me and encouraged me in my passion and pursuit of going to the military. And my dad was actually a Marine from in the early '80s, and he worked as a avionics and crew chief in the air wing. So he worked on helicopters, got to fly in them, and I got to see a lot of his pictures and yearbooks they would do from their floats out in the Pacific. And so he had a lot of knowledge and background and all that stuff too. So he was a great resource learning about the military lifestyle, what to expect. But we moved there when I was about 9 or 10. He got a new job there that took us to Idaho, and my mom always wanted to have a horse and get property. So we found they still live there on 20 acres with horses. And, we had all kinds of animals growing up there, cows and goats and chickens and stuff. So I got to grow up kind of the mini ranch lifestyle doing that. But that area is very blue collar. It's traditionally logging was the main industry that kind of formed the area. And so it was great being kind of in a smaller environment, but having the outdoors at your beck and call. So we were growing up with all my friends. We were constantly out fishing or hunting or camping and doing things I think about now. I'm like, I can't believe we survived, or we were allowed to do that. I think letting my daughter go do stuff like we used to, I'm like, no way, there's no way. But it was great. It was like we lived right next to a national or a state forest there and state park. And so we were constantly outdoors. And then, that part of the country up there has at least 4 distinct seasons, which is nice because you get a little bit of each. So, you get your winters, which are rough, but you have ski and snowboard and snowmobiling you do. And then spring rolls in the summer, and the summers are awesome. It's 90s and you're hitting the lakes and camping. So it was a really great place to grow up. And like I said, it had that more blue collar culture there. So you worked hard, you didn't complain, and you did the grind. And then, I always knew I wanted to go off to the military. So it was a great place to grow up, but it's kind of I think it's a harder place to stay for a younger adult. Yeah. Because there's not a ton there. You can find the jobs, whatever you want to be, a doctor, lawyer, teacher, but it's very small. So it's grown a lot since I've left, but it wasn't really a place to stick around. I think for at least myself and a couple of my friends, we had big aspirations to get out there. And yeah, just growing up, my parents were super supportive of my goals to join the military, even with the associated risks. And they really were a big part of helping me get through that process. Cause, I credit my mom for sitting down and filling out a lot of the applications for the scholarships and the academies, and I'd call ROTC that I ended up doing. And, they're asking questions about your vaccine records and, your doctor's appointment. I'm like, Mom, I need your help. I don't know any of this stuff. So she's awesome. She sat down and helped me every step of the way. And, they were both a big part of that. And my sister too, Jamie, she actually ended up joining as an Army nurse about 4 years behind me. She was my 4 years younger sister. So she did this. She went to the same college, did the ROTC program, and served as an Army nurse for 4 years before getting out. But she was awesome. She wanted me to make sure I mentioned I wasn't the best big brother until I got older, but I've come around. But she was always supportive too in her way. She was there when you needed somebody to talk to, and going through stuff as a young man, teenager. She was always a big support for me and encouraged me, especially as I got into college and went off in the Army. And, she was always there to talk to if I needed somebody just to vent, just to listen. And so I was fortunate to grow up with that support of my goals and dreams, because, I don't think I would have gotten there without it. And, I really appreciate them and love them a lot for that.
That's interesting. And I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a beautiful area that you grew up in, and there's a lot of patriotic Americans up there.
Oh yes,
there's flags everywhere. I'm sure there were when you were growing up. There's just as many now, and it's beautiful. America. So
yeah, that's right.
now you mentioned the academies. You were thinking about academies and actually applied, but you end up choosing Gonzaga in an ROTC program. Talk about that decision process and why did you decide on going over to Zaga over the border there?
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
So when I was researching how do I become a pilot, like I know the end goal, how do I get there? And there were a few different routes open to you, basically. So at the time, I hadn't really had my heart set on any one branch or the other. I would say I was leaning towards the Army because of the number of aircraft, and I felt like my odds of getting a pilot spot were much greater. The Air Force was super competitive, and their helicopter population is a very small chunk, and it would have been a tougher route for me. And then I looked at the Marine Corps too. Wasn't super interested in the Navy just because of the living on a boat and aircraft carriers didn't seem like a great idea. But then my dad also pointed out, well, if you're a Marine pilot, you're going to be on the boat still. So I was like, I'll look at it. But, the Marine Corps, I thought and still think, has some of the coolest helicopters.
Oh, yeah.
They have the Super Huey, Super Cobra, the Sea Stallions, the 46s. I mean, they're unique in that regard, having some of the coolest aircraft. So I was looking at them as well. So when I was looking at the academies, my family actually took a trip. I think it was after my 6th grade year in the summer. We visited Washington, D.C., and we ended up going to Annapolis, Maryland, which is where the Naval Academy is. Because my dad, when he was in the Marine Corps, he'd actually gotten offered a chance in boot camp to go to the Naval Academy prep school and then go to the academy. But they dumped him on him like the day before and said, you got to let us know by tomorrow. And he's like, I don't even know what this is. So he ended up not doing it because he figured, I'm not a career guy. I'm just doing my 4, but he was curious about what it looked like. So that was while we were there, we ended up taking a trip. And at this point in my life, I'd known I wanted to fly jets. I was familiar with the Navy and the aircraft and, had an idea, but that was my first time stepping foot kind of in that realm of the military and getting to see the academy, and the campus is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
I've gotten to visit the Air Force and the Naval, and I flew over the Army Military Academy. So I've kind of seen all 3 in person, but walking around, you're like, this is a beautiful campus, since 1806. Sorry, Navy guys, if I messed that up, but it's been around for 200 years and it's immaculate. And you see all the cadets walking around and you're free to walk around in the areas as a visitor. So we were checking out the classrooms, walking in the chow hall, and a cadet happened to be walking by and saw us. And my dad said, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, you guys visit?" And he was very friendly. And he said, "Hey, I've got a break. I can show you a cool couple things on campus." And we're like, "Sure." So he gave us some of the history about going through the plebe year and, the I forget what they call their barracks, plebe barracks or beast barracks, whatever. He talked about, I think he was a freshman or sophomore, but he gave us kind of an impromptu private tour of the campus. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. It's a way to get in the military. Academy, more competitive. You get spots directly to flight school. So I was like, this is cool. And I was really infatuated, kind of had a more romanticized version of the military at the time till I got in. And I realized it wasn't quite that cool, but that happened later in life. But so when we left, I was like, I should look at applying. So that became part of my search. I narrowed it down to, all right, the academies are out, ROTC are out. And then at the time, nobody really knew about what a warrant officer was or the program. I had talked to a recruiter because they're the ones that start you on the path for the ROTC stuff. And he's like, well, if you want to be a pilot, what about warrant officer program? And I was like, well, what is it? And he didn't really know. He's like, well, you just join and then you got to go be a pilot. And that was about all and my parents were like, nah, yeah, exactly. So thankfully I had a little more discernment than I believe in what he said, but my parents were very adamant about going to college first. My mom had gone to college. My dad didn't till later in life. And they're like, you can do what you want, Tim, but we really want you to go to college first and then go do your flying and join your career. That way, if something happens, you always had something to fall back on. And so I was like, all right, yeah. And I respected them enough to not buck that and go rogue and join as a warrant officer. So that narrowed it down to the academies and ROTC. And the academy process, what you do is you actually have to apply through your state representation, usually a senator. And they're the one that actually will look at your academy packet. You do all kinds of paperwork from the academy itself. You have to be eligible for the academy first. And then you send in all this packet and your background. And in high school, I knew I wanted to do this. So I did not like school, but I was smart enough to do well. So I grinded it out. I got high GPA 3.9 or something overall and took all the honors classes. I did 3 sports a year. I was in an honor society. I did a couple clubs, trying to make myself as well-rounded and appealing as I could to the academies and also ROTC because I was kind of parallel applying at the same time. And so I did all the applications, the packets to the senators, and then kind of wait around for a month. And then all of a sudden I get 3 or 4 different letters in the mail. And I'd gotten into all of them. And I was like, oh,
wow.
I did not expect that. So now I had my choice between the 3. I just had to pick one. And after you get nominated, if you're still want to go through the process, they actually will now send a representative from the academy to your house. So I did meet with the Army guys from West Point and the Naval Academy guys. I didn't get the Air Force because by then I'd kind of realized this wasn't for me. But I remember they sent a graduate and then a cadet to your house from the Naval Academy. And you sit down with the graduate. He's a retired admiral or something, lives in the area. And he's like, so here's a video we're going to watch. And it's the video that shows you the true academy experience. and it goes through your first year as a freshman, right? Which is basically basic training and all the hazing they're going to do. And I watched it. I'm like, that looks like it sucks. I don't know if I want to do that. And then they're like, hey, I forget his name. He was a nice guy, but they had a cadet that was on summer break, and he's like, you guys can go grab lunch or hang out, whatever. So you get some one-on-one time with a real cadet. And I remember talking with him, and I kept asking him how his experience was, because what I was realizing is this might not be enjoyable. It might be a good school to go to, and it might get you places, but I don't think you're going to have fun here. And I kept asking him, I'm like, well, do you have fun? What do you guys do for fun? Do you get weekends off? I mean, tell me about it. And all he could say was that it's an honor to go there over and over. I was like, all right, thanks, man. I think I'm good.
It's an honor to go. Happy to be there.
So, and that's what I've heard that multiple times. It's a great place to be from, not a great place to go to. So that kind of, I realized, I'm like, you know what, this is only my only 4 years of college, and I'm never going to go back to college. I'm never going to be 18 to 22 again. I want to enjoy college and all the lifestyle, the friendships, and not just military, because those academies are great. But I met a lot of academy guys in the Army, and they were all a little socially inept. They didn't develop. Terry's the exception. I'll say that. Terry's the exception, but they were different, and you could tell it's because they spent 4 years of just drinking the Army Kool-Aid, and they were brainwashed, and you just like, these guys are kind of different, and I was really glad I didn't go after that, still great institutions and all that, but they definitely teach them to be generals, and that's their whole mindset, and that they just don't get to have fun. So I remember ending the meeting and being like, thank you. I appreciate you coming out. I got to think about it. And then I think like the week later, I had already visited one ROTC program at University of Idaho down south, and it was okay. It was like, I don't really want to go. Mid Idaho is not as nice as northern Idaho. So I was like, yeah, I don't know. They were good guys, but it wasn't, I didn't know. I just didn't feel like a fit for me going there. And then I contacted Gonzaga, and, growing up there, my mom's whole side of her family was from Spokane, where Gonzaga is. So I knew of Gonzaga. Sure. The basketball team was doing good, and
puts them on the map, good. Right?
Oh yeah,
basketball teams put that school on the map over the years.
Yeah, it sure has. So I send in my application, and I get a call like the next day from Colonel Alan Westfield. I'll never forget him, because he's been a good friend and mentor over the years, but he's their recruiting officer. He's a retired Army colonel, and he saw my application, and he's like, hey, why don't you come this week and we'll do an interview, and we're actually doing an early enrollment review for certain students. So I was like, okay, I'll come over. And so we go to the campus, we meet, does an interview, basic questions about leadership. How would you handle certain things? Tell me about yourself. And at the end, he's like, we'll do a campus tour now. I'll walk you around, show you the campus. And Gonzaga has this huge admin building was there from it's the original building the school is in. The school used to be just one huge building. And you walk out these big, beautiful oak doors out to the main courtyard area, and it's a school day. So there's students walking around, and I remember we're talking, and this pack of college girls walks by wearing yoga pants and Ugg boots. And he caught me looking at him, and he goes, you should see what they wear in the springtime. I was like, oh. And I was like, I think I like college better than the academy. So, I ended up, so we finished our interview, and I could feel like I was already leaning there. I was like, it's closer to home, which I was, worried about being far away. I'm better now, but unless I'm doing sports or an activity, it's hard for me just to talk to random people. So I was like, well, at least I'll have my family here. I'll be close enough to home. I was a little homebody at the time. So, and the next week he called and he said, hey, we want to offer you a full ride scholarship. We like you. We want you. And here you go. So I was like, well, let me talk to my family and friends. And I couldn't find a reason to say no. So I was like, okay. And of course, the key thing they told me was, I said, hey, he's like, what do you want to do in your career in the Army? Have you thought about it? Are you familiar? I'm like, oh, I'm familiar, and I'm going to be an aviator. I want to be a pilot. And he goes, well, this is great. And he's like, you can be a pilot. And I was like, well, I heard about this warrant officer program. Can you tell me anything about it? And he goes, well, you don't get to lead and be a pilot. That's what you'll get to do as an officer. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. So they ended up joining and going to Gonzaga through the ROTC program.
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, Sol 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
Wow.
That's wild.
Well, what we've determined so far, John, let's recap, shall we? What we've determined so far is air show, big impact. UE ride, huge impact. Yoga pants and Ugg boots, big impact. So that's where we are. This is great. Oh, Tim. It's just funny. It's funny the things that impact you.
And that wasn't the only thing, but I remember because I told him that story at his retirement, and he laughed. He's like, "Oh, I remember." He remembered that moment
too. That's really cool. Wow.
Yeah, he caught me with my mouth open. Just
so, well, obviously you enjoyed your time at Gonzaga.
I did.
Yeah. I mean. And you got that fun part of it as well as the military part of it, because ROTC in college is no joke. I mean, that's a big commitment, with a lot of things. But you graduated second lieutenant, Lieutenant Brennan, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So now you got that 4 years out of your way, and you're already a second lieutenant in the United States Army. But you had an immediate setback in your plan.
I did.
Talk about that.
So through the ROTC program, what it is a commissioning program. So you're not technically in the reserves, but you are in active reserve is what they call it. So for the college program, what you do is it's basically basic training and officer candidate school spread out over 4 years of college. So a typical week would look like we'd get up Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, meet for physical training, PT at 6, do that 6 to 7. And then twice a week, you'd have an academic class with whatever group you're in, freshman, sophomore, junior, whatever. And that was going into the academics of the Army. So you learn about the Army, its history, and then you get into doctrine, and then you get into more of the theoretical concepts of warfare and all the, the stuff that sounds cool, but at the time you're like, I don't know what the heck we're talking about. We're talking about commanding legions and battle groups. And so, but you get all that spread over 4 years. And at the end of it, between your junior and senior year, you go through the ROTC version of basic training, which is kind of a watered down version of real basic training. You go to, at the time it was at Fort Lewis, Washington. So you go there for a month and then graduate. And then after that, between your junior and senior year, you get ranked 1 through whatever, 1,000 nationally. And so I think my class, 4,000 some officers for commissioning, and you get number 1 through 4,000. And based on that is how they select your branch choice. So for the Army Officer Corps, you had a choice at the time of 16 different branches, essentially your job. So you could be infantry officer, armor tank officer, supply officer, aviation officer, whatever pathway you want to go, military police. And what you do is you make your wish list 1 through 16. And then depending on a couple factors, big one is your GPA. I think that was 40% or 60%, huge percentage of your ranking.
That's big.
Which wasn't great for me because I picked international relations as my major, and it was very political. So some of my beliefs didn't get graded very well. so I did okay. I had like a 3.4, which in the end, and then your physical fitness score, your leadership scores, all kinds of stuff. So in the end, I think I ranked out at like number 18 or 1,600 out of 4,000 or 1,200. somewhere just around 1,000. So you're in the top quarter, but that's not great if you really want one job. So,
right.
So I had put in aviation as my first, but I really actually wanted to be a medevac pilot. And to do that, you can either branch aviation and then you can go to flight school. And if you get Blackhawks, you can transfer to the medical service corps, or you can get in the medical service corps, which is what I ended up doing as my second choice. And from there, you're eligible to apply for a medevac officer spot. So we get our branches in the fall of our senior year, and I ended up getting med service, which was a bummer at the time. You know, I was bummed out. It wasn't, I had one more path or one more obstacle to get to aviation, which I had my heart set on. So the board for the medevac slots were in the spring, early spring. So you fill out a packet, you know, there's all these things. You have to be branch med service. You got to have certain minimums met, and then you got to get some recommendation letters, things like that. So I had my whole packet, and then my ROTC unit helped me put it together with getting recommendations and all that. And we had a big packet, and back then you submitted by the mail. Well, I remember walking over there with our admin specialist. She and I went in there to the mailbox, put it in there, and then it disappears. So the results come out from the medevac selection board, and what they do is they show you who got selected on the letter and who's in the wait list. And my name wasn't on either one, which it should have at least been on, if I wasn't picked, at least been on the alternate list. So my RTC battalion commander, Colonel Stewart, was an awesome guy, huge supporter of mine. He called his colonel, who was an aviation guy, in the chain of command, and they call over to human resources, and they're like, yo, we sent this guy's packet in. What's the deal? And they're like, we never heard of him. Don't know who he is. And it's too late. So that was, you know, I felt like the world was ending at that point. You know, I'm like, I don't want to be a med service officer, which is not a doctor, right? It's the admin part of the Army medical department. So you're responsible for admin duties, making sure the doctors take their PT tests. You could be a medical platoon leader in a infantry battalion. You're in charge of all the medics, but all your guys get split out amongst all the units. So you're not, it's an okay job, but it's not like not what I wanted to do.
Yeah. It wasn't what you were planning on for years, huh?
Definitely not. So, so in the end, what they do that medevac selection board every year annually. So the major who was in charge of that said, hey, look, I'll talk to the human resources cadet guys and we'll see what we can do. He can be eligible next year, but he's going to have to volunteer for a short tour, they call it, which at the time means you only go somewhere for about a year. So they only do that in a few spots. So it was Korea, Honduras, and I think at the time that was it. You know, it was that or that. And of course, Hondo would have been cool, but you know, that's not how it was going to work out. So I ended up having to volunteer for Korea for a year. So I ended up getting sent to Korea as part of the medical brigade there. And once again, I'm back grinding it, trying to redo this whole packet, get letters of recommendation, and just pray that it comes through this time. And that time, so after I graduate, you know, go through a couple officer basic courses that were just teaching the basics of the military officer jobs. And, you know, they weren't super useful. We were learning land doctrine from the Cold War, and we're about to go fight insurgents and FOBs. So yeah, it's just getting through it. But so I go to Korea, and this time I'm sending this thing as certified as I can. I'm going to need signatures. I'll pay whatever it costs. I'm going to send two copies this time. I'm going to have a third on the backup. I mean, I took every step imaginable to make sure it at least got there so that I could get an honest look. And thankfully this time around it worked. So they got my packet, and I ended up getting selected for a medevac slot. And I thought, oh great, I'm ready to go. Let's get me out of Korea. And they're like, oh no, you're finishing your year. So I was like, oh great. So I had to finish my 7 months, and then I got to finally go to flight school after that.
Wow.
So from Korea, you get to go to UCLA, the upper corner of Lower Alabama, right?
That's right.
And off to Fort Rucker.
Yep.
But that year, I mean, obviously, as disappointed as you were, are there things you look back on and go, you know what, I'm thankful for that year?
Yeah, especially where I'm at now. I mean, you know, you never know what God's plan is for you. And it's not till you get years down the road, sometimes decades, that you look back and you go, okay, now I understand why. If I didn't do this, then this wouldn't have happened. And all those little branches in the decision tree chain don't end up leading to where you want to be, which I couldn't be happier where I'm at now. But every one of those little hiccups, every one of those little deviations gets you to where you end up are now. So I look back on it, I am thankful for the time there, especially after I got selected, because that was a huge weight off my shoulders. I mean, the first 3 months I was there, every day was like, what do I got to do? How do I make sure I get in? Who do I need to talk to? Because if I didn't work then I was done. I'd have to finish my time as a regular med officer and get out or try some other way. So thankfully it worked out. And after that, I was able to relax. And then, it was a bummer not having to finish the year, but I got to travel all over Asia. So, you had a group of friends, and Korea is not like the active normal army, right? It is a presence army. So it's there just to be a presence to deter anything from the North Koreans doing anything. So you're kind of just hanging out, you do your training, you maintain readiness, but there's a 4-day weekend every month, and you're traveling all over all over East Asia. So, I went places, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, Philippines, places I'll never go to now, more than likely. But, I made the most of it while I was there, which I'm thankful for. It was really cool experiences, and met some good friends I still talk to from there.
Sure.
And it's just part of my journey now.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, sole 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24-megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Dallas Avionics, who provides innovative products to law enforcement, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, military, air medical, search and rescue, and special missions operations. Dallas Avionics distributes OEM equipment, including communications equipment, digital audio systems, PA systems, flight tracking, and other mission-critical devices. Visit DallasAvionics.com for more details.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of our conversation with Tim Brennan. It is incredible how many of our aviation guests were influenced by an early life event like an air show or a first flight. Tim is certainly one of those. His aviation journey has much more to come in parts 2 and 3, including a courageous swiftwater rescue in the desert by Tim and his crew. Be sure to check out the other podcasts on the Vertical Helicast platform. The Helicopter Podcast with Halsey Scheider, the Real Rescue Podcast with Jason Quinn, the Valor Flight Crew Podcast with Mike Fidali and Blake Schreider, and the Vertical MRO Podcast. Thank you for your support. Stay safe, and we'll catch you the next time for part 2 on the Hangar Z Podcast.